It's big, it's broad, it's broad, it's bright. It fills the sky of All Hallows Night. The strangest sight you've ever seen. The monster tree on Halloween. The leaves have burned to golden red. The grass is brown, the old deer dead. Hang the harvest high, oh see, the candle constellations on the Halloween tree. What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and good evening. Today it's Halloween, and I've got a special book review today. Today we're going to be talking about The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. If you happen to be new to the channel, I read a lot of Indian small press horror, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi. So that sounds like something you're interested in. Please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Check out some of the other content on the channel, and maybe you'll discover a book that you enjoy. Well, let's get right into the review. This is my third experience with Bradbury. I've read Fahrenheit 451. I read Something Wicked This Way Comes, and now I've read / listened to The Halloween Tree. And if I had to rate them all, this one would be right in the middle. I liked it more than Fahrenheit 451, but just a tiny bit less than Something Wicked This Way Comes. I did listen to this on audiobook, and it was narrated, at least this version was narrated by Bronson Pinchot. I believe is how you pronounce his last name. And I thought he did a wonderful job. I really loved the audiobook production for this one. For me, I listen to audiobooks a lot when I go to the grocery store or when I'm cooking dinner or something like that. When I'm doing something else but don't have time to actually sit down and read a book. And I caught myself at the grocery store listening to this one, especially when Mound Shroud and the Halloween Tree come into the story. I was just grinning. I really enjoyed this one. It really feels, the best way to describe it is sort of a Halloween fairy tale is sort of what it feels like. It is more for younger audiences. It's not scary. It has a little bit of creepiness to it, but it is a family-friendly story, I would say. It would be a perfect Halloween story to read with your older children, like 10, 11 or so they can sort of comprehend what is going on. But definitely family-friendly. I had a lot of fun with it. A lot of Halloween nostalgia and feels and whatnot. And like I said, I just caught myself just grinning from ear to ear, listening to it. The narrator did a fantastic job with Mound Shroud's voice. I really loved his voice. And the intro clip was a little bit of the Halloween Tree song that is presented in the book, which I really enjoyed. But to get down to it, what is the Halloween Tree about? This is just brief synopsis stuff. Again, no spoilers. But we're following 8 friends, 8 young boys on Halloween, and they're super excited to go trick-or-treating. They've all got their costumes on. One's dressed up like a witch, one's dressed up like a gargoyle, and so on. And one's like a mummy. And their costumes, they do come into play later on, which I really enjoyed that aspect. It's not just random costumes. They all have a part to play in the story as we go along. But they're all excited to go trick-or-treating, and they notice one of their friends is not with them, a young boy named Pipkin. Pipkin, he's sort of the pseudo leader of the group. He's the smartest. He's the most athletic. It seems like all the other boys sort of look up to him. He's sort of your quintessential, young strapping lad, if you will. He's not with them for some reason, but Halloween is also his favorite holiday, so they're wondering where he is. They go to his house, find out that he's not actually feeling well. He's not in his costume. It just seems a bit off. And he tells them it'll be okay. He'll meet them later on. Go on to sort of the creepy house down the street, and he'll meet them there. So that's what they do. They venture on to the house down the street. And I really loved the character of Mound Shroud. This is his house, and in the backyard is the Halloween tree itself. Just this huge, sprawling, dead-looking tree. There's no leaves on it, but it has all these hanging jack-o'-lanterns on it, all with these different carved faces. And I loved that imagery here of the Halloween tree itself. It was super fantastic. But sort of what happens is the boys get wrapped up in this sort of fantastical, mesmerizing adventure where they travel through time and space as they follow Pipkin. Pipkin seems to be in the clutches of death, if you will, and he's being dragged around through time and space. And the boys go on this adventure along with Moundshroud as sort of their tour guide. And they're learning about the history of Halloween. It almost feels like a history lesson. They go through ancient Egypt and Greece and Rome, and they learn about like the Celtic Druids and the witches and stuff, and they go to the Day of the Dead in Mexico City and all that kind of stuff, just traveling through time, learning about the origins of Halloween, how all these different places and cultures celebrated Halloween before it was really Halloween, really diving into the aspects of the fear of death, the reverence of death, the celebration of death, and how through the generations and the centuries, with all of these different civilizations and societies and cultures, how bits and pieces of everything from all those different places has sort of coalesced into what we consider Halloween to be today, the celebration that we have. And their costumes play into that. You know, they go to ancient Egypt, and the mummy costume comes into play. They're sort of the Druidic society, and the witch part comes into play. They go to Notre Dame, the cathedral in Paris, and the gargoyle comes into play. So I really liked how their costumes tied into the story. So that was a lot of fun. Like I said, it's very fantastical, sort of a Halloween fairy tale. Ray Bradbury's prose, it's very poetic, and it's just full of vivid imagery. There's one scene in particular that doesn't really have anything to do with the plot, but I really enjoyed it. Before they go on their adventure, they're sort of on their way to heading out and going back in time and whatnot. But there's this old barn in town, and over the years, the circus always comes through, and they'll sort of paint up a new flyer or glue up a new flyer. They don't bother to take the old ones down. They just have glued them over top of each other for years and years and years. And the boys are trying to get across this sort of ravine, and they want to build a kite. So they're tearing pieces of these posters down. So they'll tear off a big piece, and it'll be a big eyeball. And they'll tear off another piece, and it'll be the paw of a lion. And they'll tear off another piece, it'll be the mouth of a tiger. And the way that Bradbury wrote that scene, as they're putting all these pieces together of these different circus posters, it really brought the animals to life. You could hear sort of the roar of the lion and the trumpet of the elephant as they were putting these pieces together, this hodgepodge kite. It was super vivid, and I just absolutely loved that scene. That might have been one of my favorite scenes in the entire book. Just super great writing that really draws you in. You feel like you're there along with these kids, and the imagery, it's like I said, super vivid. You can just picture it all in your head. And Bradbury's writing, what I have read of him, the very few things I have read of him, his writing seems to be like that for everything. Very poetic writing. It does take a little bit of time to get used to. It is sort of flowery and poetic. But I just really have fallen in love with his writing with the few things I have read of him. And I'm really excited to read more from him in the future. But these boys, they travel through time sort of on the coattails of Pipkin as he's being drawn along. Like I said, it seems like he's sort of in the clutches of death, and they're basically trying to save him. It feels like his fate is sort of in their hands. And it does have it is sort of a children's story, if you will, but it does have this darker undertone, this undercurrent of discovering one's own mortality and that life is fleeting, life isn't guaranteed. You can be here one day and not here the next, especially with it happening to Pipkin, who seems to be this young, strapping, full of energy type kid who you would never think would get sick or have anything wrong with him. For him to be the one that possibly might be dying really brings about that thinking about one's own mortality and death. I think those are some of the undercurrents to the story, a bit deeper, that I did enjoy as well. Other than that, I don't really want to say too much more about it. It is a very short book. It was only like 3 hours on audiobook. I do want to get the paperback. I feel like this is one I would read around Halloween time every year. And the cover over here, I didn't notice this at first. From far away, it just looks like a skull. But when you get closer, you can actually tell it's all the kids in their Halloween costumes. They're just sort of illustrated in the shape of a skull, which I thought was really cool. But overall, I gave it 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Very Halloween nostalgia feeling, sort of magical and mesmerizing, a bit of a Halloween fairy tale that I think is appropriate for not only adults, but for younger children, 10, 11 years old, to read and have a very entertaining and fun Halloween story. But that's all I have for you guys today. Again, this has been my 4-star quick little review of The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. Thank you all for spending your time with me. I hope everyone has a safe and spooky Halloween, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.